Today I want to talk about volt regulators. Volt regulators can be very useful in Thailand. Why is that? It's because many places when people build big houses, can have problems with small houses too, but the big houses, that's when you get the really serious problems with bad voltage. So first of all, why is that? It is because the transformers and the electrical cables that are in the neighborhood are too small for the load. And by the load in this case, I mean the whole neighborhood that is connected to the transformer. So if that happens, that the transformer is too small, then the strain on the transformer is too much, the voltage goes down. It can also happen with distance from the transformer and too small cables, things like that. You get very big loss if it's a long way, but in most cases it's too small transformer. In those cases you can install a volt regulator, a volt stabilizer. So what that does is that it raises the voltage and then puts that into your panel. So it's basically a small box that the electricity, before it goes into your breaker panel, it passes through that box and then goes into your panel. That's how it works. We have installed many kinds of volt regulators, and there are many different brands. Especially one brand that we like is the Phetchabun. Really good stuff, and they have many different sizes. So when you select size for your volt regulator, you have to be quite careful. You have an amp rating, so let's say that you have a 50 amp volt regulator. In a normal volt situation, that volt regulator will support about 11,000 watts. The problem is that in all cases, when the volt regulator is actually performing its function, the volt is much lower. So you have to calculate that before you buy and actually measure how low does your volt go before you buy a volt regulator. So the lower the volt goes, the higher the amp, and that means that if your volt problem is really bad, you need a very big volt regulator. Okay, so I'll give you an example. If your volt goes down to 150 volt, that 50 amp volt regulator is now only supporting about 7,000 watts, So that's an enormous difference. And then what happens then if your load is then more than 7,000, the volt regulator doesn't work anymore. It can't do it. So most of the time, unless you understand these things completely yourself, you need to have somebody calculate and observe and measure before you install. But based on this information, you can do it yourself. But what you have to remember, what the biggest mistake people do is that they buy too small. So they just think about the wattage on a normal volt. But that's not the case. You have to think about when you have the bad volt situation, how much amp do you need at that time. So with the bad voltage, and that, let's say you calculate and you have a load of 8,000, it's actually that 50 amp volt regulator is going to fail once the volt goes below 150. So it's just not going to work. So that's the number one. Once you have a good size that's adjusted to your load, then you're good to go. You can install. Volt regulators are really useful. They are really good. But you have to be aware that when you observe volt problems, it's not sure that the volt regulator will solve the problem, because the problem could be actually something else. The problem could be frequency or something, or like the transformer could be giving out bad electricity that is not only bad volt. And then to have a volt regulator will actually not in itself fix the problem, because there are other problems there. And then you have to look into other solutions like change the supply, go to three-phase, things like that. So why does going to three-phase fix this problem? Well, that's actually that then you change the transformer that you're getting your electricity from. So it's not that three-phase electricity is like in nature something else or will give you better voltage. No, it's just that the transformer is different. And then when you move from a transformer that's undersized compared to the houses that it supports to a transformer that's not undersized, then the electricity that it gives out is correct. That's why the three-phase supply gives better electricity.